Hi there, dailies. So the other day I decided to go over to Cole Harbour. Cole Harbour is recognizable by the fact that a hockey player comes from there by the name of Sidney Crosby. However, that is not why I went over. I went over to see my friend who runs an internet-based radio station called the Capsule Audio Network. It's quite an amazing feat and quite an amazing studio he has there. So I did a tour of his studio as well as an interview with him. So without further ado, let's go inside his studio. I finally got to my friend's house and we're going into his basement studio / web-based radio station. It is so awesome. Lots of awesomeness going on here. Now, Scott's been a friend of mine for many years. We DJ'd together back in the 90s. We are now entering the web-based radio station / studio of my longtime friend and DJ, Scott Snalem at Time Capsule Audio Network.
Oh, hi Fred, how you doing? Hi everybody, and welcome to my humble abode. It is my hobby, to put it politely. From here we run an internet radio station called the Time Capsule Audio Network. In addition to that, we also do a syndicated radio program that's heard on a number of different LP-FM stations, low-power FM stations, and community stations called Cheese Please. And you can hear it online as well at cheeseplease.com. So this is where we actually do it. It's a combination of a number of different radio station throwaways. I'm a gear collector for about 15 years now of various radio studio equipment, turntables, CD players, reel-to-reel decks, and it all comes together right here. Case in point here, this is a vintage microphone from the early 1940s. Very popular model, a Western Electric 639, also known as the birdcage microphone. Another thing we use on the air at Cheese Please on a regular basis is this 1950s vintage remote Collins mixer. 4 channels, all about microphones, and that's pretty much it. But it's a little hissy, but ultimately it works very well.
Yeah, for his age, I mean, you know, from the 50s.
It's 50s. It's the first transistor mixer that Collins ever put out. And it works great. We use it every week on Cheese Please, so if you ever hear of the program, you know what we're talking into. Further on down here, a pile of different tapes I've collected over the years working in various radio stations. Some of this stuff goes back over half a century. And it still plays well, surprisingly enough. I have the equipment to play it on. A little further down here we have a piece of equipment that I acquired from the CBC here in Halifax. About a couple years ago, I got it from a community station, but this is a McCurdy 8820 stereo console, about 20 channel console that I got in pieces and we're still putting together. It's a work in progress, but it does pass audio and it does do it quite well. So ultimately we'll get there, but eventually it'll probably take over production. But right now it's sitting here mainly to make sure it works. I turn it on every couple weeks and it's not falling apart yet, so it's a work in progress. We'll get there. Moving down here, we'll move here. Oh, actually, let's go into the control room here. This is the internet radio station control room. And the nice thing about it is that it mirrors what a real radio station would have looked like back in the days of the tape cartridge systems that
that wasn't quite yesterday.
No, let me turn up the light here. The tape cartridge systems, to give a demonstration, these tapes have 1 song on them each. So you would have literally, like here, this rack holds 300 cards. You would literally take it out of the rack, take it over to the machine.
So every time you want to have a different song, it's on a different card.
Yes. So what you would do is you would take it out. If you can see it there, that's Foreigner and Urgent.
Yep.
Okay. 418 is the time. The tempo is up. 5-second intro or a post, then a 24-second vocal, and it fades out. That's basically what that means. So you would take it over to the machine, and you literally put it into the machine. So when you're ready, the previous song fades, you hit the button, bang,
Away it goes.
and the song's on the air. It looks like an 8-track, but it isn't. It's a different design than an 8-track. Case in point, you can see into this, and the pinch roller would come up here, hit that little piece of plastic. It would come up, hit the tape, and the tape starts rotating. The pinch roller in an 8-track is actually built into the 8-track itself.
Right in, yeah.
As opposed to not here. The pinch roller is actually on the machine. And it's very important too to have the clear part, because if you come over here, Fred, in case it screws up,
Okay.
you can put it in here and you can see the tape spin.
Right on, yeah.
So you know it's working right. And that can come out very important in some cases. Especially when the thing starts and you're wondering what the hell's going on. Well, the tape's not running. What will happen eventually, if we let that tape roll, it will come out, it's a continuous loop, so it'll come around again, and then that light will come on. Like I just
And
said.
it's ready to go for the next
And
play.
it's ready to go for the next time. Just some other equipment here. This is another CBC piece I obtained. And this is an Ampex 440C, circa 1980, we believe. 2-track stereo machine. Very popular in the time. Very popular in the 1970s. I'm sure more than a few hit records were mastered on this machine.
Imagine.
This type of machine. Beautiful to have. I'm very happy where I got it from, because basically it was a matter of sitting in a garage. Do you want it? And I'm happy.
So this would have been used like at the CBC studio here, probably in Halifax.
Yes, it was used at CBC in Halifax at one point. So I just got it second hand, and I'm not complaining.
Oh, absolutely.
These are very nice machines.
Nice piece of gear.
Built to last, and I've got tapes to play it on, so that's even better.
Yes.
Over here we have what amounts to a broadcast standard from probably the mid-1960s until the mid-1980s for turntables in control rooms. The McCurdy CH12. Very popular at the time in virtually any radio station in Canada. They're pretty much a dying breed now, a bit of a dinosaur, but they're fun to play with. The trick with these things is that you have to remember to put them in gear. They're in gear now, so if you hit the button...
Like the old standard cars.
Very much. If you hit the button, the light comes on, starts. We're all good. Sometimes this one's a little fidgety, because if you take it out of gear, obviously you hit the button, it's not going to turn on. But if you put it in gear and put it in right, there we go. Sometimes you got to fidget.
Yeah.
But if you don't put it in gear, you hit the button, ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's very important to remember that you have to put it in gear. So over here, like I say, the cart decks, the console here, I bought it off eBay circa, I don't know, 2004. It's 1970, September 1970 according to the manual, so it's 46 years old. It's still on 24/7, 365 here. It's running the stream, so if you hear the Time Capsule Audio Network stream, this is what you'll hear. Everything goes through this. The master center control, the automation system, one of two we have and are using here, called Zera Radio, running 24/7. And this one I added this year called Radio DJ, which I use for live assist. When I'm actually here in the studio playing stuff, I usually play it off this system here. So we combine the two. I rely on that more than that, but they're both very solid systems. In reality these days, you can't do what I'm doing without a computer.
Yeah.
As much as you like to.
Yeah, I played with the Zera a little bit too, and like you said before, it is quite easy to get right into. So
it's very easy to program. It's very solid. It'll run on Windows 95, I think.
Yeah. So if someone was going to start up a web-based radio station, that would probably be the best thing for them to get into.
To start off, yes.
To start off, yeah.
If you want to actually sit and play music every so often, I'd recommend Radio DJ.
Right.
Both programs are free. Both programs are online. They're easy enough to find. So if you want to just do a Google search on either one of them, you should be good. Up here we have the on-air compressor limiter that everything goes to before it goes to air. I don't necessarily believe in over-processing like most FM commercial radio stations do. I just put enough in there to keep it in line, and that's pretty much it. We call it a network because I want a network sound. I don't want to sound balls to the wall. You know, I don't have to sound big and bold. I just want to make it sound like a network. So, cassette decks and CD players, they're here if you want to use them. I don't use them most of the time because most of the time I rip CDs to put into TCAN, but they're here to use. I do have some tapes if I want to play that I did in the 90s. I feel old. Sorry.
Well, that's okay.
Around here, let's go to production.
Now that you're through, there's the infamous rack.
That's the rack. That's the rack. I'm working on the rack, okay? I'm trying to get stickers to fill the entire rack. I'm doing quite well. I got a lot of local ones here. Some international stuff I got from someone else that I put up, and some international stuffs I got off a Facebook group. A couple of people sent me.
Oh, that's
stickers.
interesting, yes.
Some of which are from Australia, some from the US, and some more local stuff. So, I mean, I want to fill the entire panel. And then some. If it goes off the deep end, I mean, I'll start adding panels on the wall. I don't care. Those are basically canvas panels that you can pick up at Michael's or any one of those.
Okay, that's a pretty neat idea.
places.
Yeah.
It came down to I got the rack, but I didn't have any sides or anything to that degree. So I thought, well, what can I do? And I started walking around Michael's and saw those as like they're perfect, and they're cost effective to do. And they're cheaper than plywood. Plywood isn't necessarily cheap these days. So.
Do you find that they do any soundproofing in that area? Like, because you know you hear about soundproofing in studios and all that business. So
it can't hurt, but I don't think the main concern with any studio these days is reflection of the walls.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can put up posters, you can put up blankets, anything to cut down reflection.
So I guess that may cut some reflection down. I guess that's what I was aiming at when I asked that question.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, ultimately, you can be one of those recording studios that are very anal, and they have good reason to be because they're trying to have a certain sound in that studio. But most radio studios these days are not as what they used to be in the 60s and 70s and before that, with the 2-foot thick walls and the 2-foot thick doors and everything else. So I mean that's not today.
No.
So,
but it looks pleasant too. So it works well.
I'm doing the Andy Travis thing here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do the Andy Travis office from WKRP by putting. If I don't have a wall, I'll put stuff on the rack. And the nice thing is, the panels come off, so you're not going to scrape the stickers off or anything. They're there. They can stay.
If I didn't know better, looking at it from this angle, not knowing that it was a rack, it looks like a pillar in your basement to me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you got a good point. It does look.
It
like
really
a pillar.
looks like a part of the structure, and you got it going right up to your ceiling. So that it really resembles a pillar, and it hides it well. I mean,
I gotta get new ceiling tiles. They suffered a little bit.
But these things happen, right?
Ultimately, yes. Let's see the front of the rack.
Yeah.
Now this is what's here. I mean, ultimately, this is the front of the rack. We've got a reel-to-reel from the late 1960s. It's one of those restore pieces. I have a few. I fixed it a bit, but it still needs a little bit of work. Audio compressor from the 1950s from General Electric, BA9B. The infamous LA4, Yuri LA4 from the 1970s, which was my actual mic compressor on Cheese Please. So if you hear me on the air, everything goes through that. DAT machine, you don't see those a lot. There's still a lot of around though, but digital audio tape, CD cart players. Back in the late 80s, early 1990s, when a lot of stations were airing CDs on air directly, they would put them in these cartridges. and you can literally take the CD out, put the CD in. There's screws here so the jocks can't get their fingers all over them.
Ah, yes.
That's the whole idea of putting it in a cartridge. And then you would literally put it into the CD player, watch it queue up, hit the button, and away you go.
Right.
Very much like the tape cartridges I showed earlier.
Yeah.
A cart recorder for mono from probably mid-late 1970s. These are record amplifiers here, the Innovonics, but I'm using as digital audio or distribution audio amplifiers.
Yes.
And a couple other stuff at the bottom there that's just filling space.
Yeah. And I got to comment on the old MPA 100 because I had one of those things. And
you still have that?
No, I actually sold it several years ago, and I sold all my amps actually. But that thing, I wish I still had it for nostalgia's sake. Well, I wish I had kept it.
That was given to me. A friend of mine had a PV. He was doing the DJ service. I actually worked with him at one of the stations, and he said, "Do you want it?" I said, "Yeah, what the hell." So that's been sitting somewhere for a while. I thought I put it in the rack.
That thing was old reliable. My God.
I have space for it, so why not put it in? Okay, just moving on to some of the stuff here in production. Production is basically, in a nutshell, is exactly what needs to be done in a radio station to produce commercials. Any kind of prep for on-air audio is produced in a production studio. For mine, I have 3 different computers. Dare I say this, Windows 98. And it works.
It's okay. Windows is good.
Quite well. It works quite well. We've got Windows 7 and Windows XP. Different multi-track programs. The infamous Adobe Audition. This was a very old, not older one, but it's about a 20-year-old program called Triple Dat. Creamware's Triple Dat. That's pretty much obsolete, but I like it. I like what it does. And we have SoundForge 10 over here on the other computer. A variety of different software, including some of the older QuickPix / iPix Media Touch player. I'm just going to close out of here and I'll give you an idea of what that looks like. Especially since the fact that we use QuickPix on Cheese Please on a regular basis. So we put everything into QuickPix. And I just play it. As it's pulled into it, and away we go. I mean, this program's close to 20 years old.
Yeah.
It's the old school one, but you just pick it and hit the play button, and away you go.
And away you go. Yep.
And it makes it nice and easy. So I mean, I use that. It's obsolete, but I don't care.
It works. It does what you want.
Exactly. Another triple-decker cart machine. This one actually records in stereo, so anything I record on the cart, the tape cartridge I showed earlier, is recorded on that machine. Just moving over here briefly. Cassette deck. Here's my 50-plus year old cart machines. The oldest ones I have. They're probably late 1960s. And you put a cart in here. I'll turn it off here. There's sound effects on this one.
Okay.
Turn this up. Everything mono goes through this little newsroom mixer I got from the late 80s. And hit the button. And there you go. You know, you get the sound effects. And that'll play for a little bit, then it'll stop. And these things are built like tanks.
It looks like it.
You cannot kill them. They're heavy as tanks, but you cannot kill the thing. And I've never had a major problem with them. I clean the tape heads every so often, but that's pretty much it. And I think that, there we go. So that's what happens. And the stop button's ready, so it's ready to play again. This is an example. There it is. And you can, with a cart, you can actually put virtually an endless number of versions or cuts of what you just heard onto that cart for a certain amount of time. I mean, if you have like a 40 or 70 second cart, as long as you can fit that
within that time,
like 3 or 4 or 5, you can do that. So as strangely enough, I'll give you a bit of a secret here.
Is it easier to use a cart like with what you have set up here than have it on the computer and pop up a sound effect for when you're doing stuff like that?
That's interesting you say, because you're leading me into exactly what I'm going to demonstrate. That's the funny part. On our show, we're in a van driving around looking for cheesy music.
Yes.
So we're driving in some cases in the van. The van is driving, we're talking. We're doing a show because the van drives itself.
Yes.
It's a long story.
Yeah, but it's a good show, so people go listen to it, please.
So ultimately, to have that on a computer at the same time as we're talking, because we record live.
Right.
Everything is done as much as possible live. We can do it with some of the more modern software, but I've done it this way for years. Here's our background.
Right.
And that's endless loop, so I just put it in and let it run. And then mix it in with the back of our voice tracks, and it's done.
It's done.
It's all ready to go.
Yeah, so I guess sometimes when you're used to doing something a different way, or shall we say in this case the older-fashioned way, it's easier.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are certain advantages to do it that way. I mean, actually, this is the one on the road. There we go. The other one I use when we're parked next to a truck stop.
No, okay, yeah.
But ultimately, at the time we started this show, this was the best way to do it. Because
yes.
I didn't find any software out there that could endlessly loop seamlessly.
Right.
So sometimes this isn't necessarily seamless, but it's part of the joke.
Right.
That it's like someone using a green screen.
Yeah.
In the ocean. It's part
True.
of the joke.
True.
We have fun with it,
and as many times as I listen to the show, I never noticed that this is what it actually is.
Oh yeah, that's it.
So I would never have known.
That's it. It's an endless loop. It doesn't stop, and that's how it works for us. So I mean, ultimately, I've used both of these on the show, and if you hear it every week, this is where it's coming from. And these beasts are solid.
They're rock solid.
Yeah. Over here we have the reel-to-reel machine that we keep as a spare. Mid-70s TAC 3300. Works well. The bad thing about the TACs is that the pinch rollers tend to gummy up a little bit.
Yeah.
They don't kick in the way they should. Actually not the pinch roller, but the piston here. So I don't use it as much as I use the Studer on the other side and the Ampex clone, but it's there just in case I need it. And I mean, the price was right. Most of this gear was saved from a radio station.
Yeah.
Radio station renovations or anything like that. I've picked it up for maybe $100 at the most. That's my bucket.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome.
So ultimately, I've done quite well. I do my best to keep it together. One last thing I should mention here.
You're repurposing old gear, which is awesome, because otherwise it'd end up in the landfill or recycled or something.
Well, the problem is a lot of this stuff has ended up in the landfill. And this, to a degree, is somewhat collectible, depending on who collects it and who sees it. You see the stuff on eBay. I don't think a console like that will go under $500 to $1,000 even used on eBay these days.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a good investment to a degree.
Right.
One other piece I'll show you here. I'm kind of proud of it because I got a call. Someone had this turntable up in Pugwash, Nova Scotia, and I got a call and an email saying, "Do you want to buy it? $100."
Wow.
This is a 1948 vintage RCA transcription turntable, 70D. So it's built like a tank, and I'm just still amazed that I had an opportunity to have one of these, because I'll show you. Just stay there, Fred.
70s style steel cabinet. It's like the old iconic fridges that were lead lined back in the day. They look like they'll never blow apart.
Oh, this is built like a tank.
Yeah.
I had this, if you can see this, I found this online years ago. I printed it off, standard of the studios, and this is an ad for the 70D. The one I have does not have the actual proper tone arm. This is a mid-1960s tone arm.
Okay.
Gray Research 208. But at some point, what happened? I'm sure someone just retrofitted it with the tone arm. This is wired for stereo.
Okay.
This actual record is probably late 1930s, if not 1940s vintage. This is a 16-inch transcription disc. This was the recording format for radio, dating back to the early 30s up until tape took over in the mid to late 1950s.
Yeah.
This particular disc comes from the NBC Thesaurus recording library, because back then an artist did not necessarily record a record and it ended up on the radio. That was in the top 40 days.
Yeah.
But before that, stations would subscribe to a service like this, which would give you recorded music you can kill time with on regular programming.
Right.
So I've got a few hundred of these that were saved from the dumpster, and you see them up on eBay every so often.
So as opposed to like a 33 or 45 or 78, what's the speed now that transcription would run at?
Well, let's give you an example here.
There's a 33 on.
There is an LP on the right.
Yeah.
And that's a
transcription on the left.
On the left. Strangely enough, you can make a good point saying that. Let me get this again. You can make a good point that this, the Micro Groove 33 1/3, was the son of the 16-inch 33 1/3.
Okay.
So this played at 33 1/3 as well.
Isn't that interesting?
You would get about 15 minutes per side on this, whereas the actual LP would get upwards of 18 to 20, and in some cases a half an hour.
Half an hour, yeah.
If you really want to push it like a K-Tel album. But ultimately, you would get about 15 minutes on this side. You would play it back with a 78 needle, usually. There are some variants depending on who you talk to. If you want to really get into the hardcore stuff of transcriptions, there's different stylus types. But I use a 78 stylus to play this back. So, actually, let's try that. Let me turn a few things over.
Yep.
Okay, let's play a record here. This is the one we saw earlier, the NBC Thesaurus Recording Library, the Alan Roth Orchestra. So let's put it on here. It's already set up for 33 1/3, so I installed this switch that is a little more authentic than your standard light switch. That was in here, and thanks to my wife, who actually took a quiche pan and at the bottom of a quiche pan, and I get some brass screws at Home Depot that made it sort of look good.
Yes.
And I had this knob, so I'll just turn it on here. And we'll put the on here. A little scratchy, but you know, it's 75 years old. And away we go.
How many quarts of oil do you go through?
Oh yeah, that's right. You know what? I'll tell you something. That actually, according to the manual, wanted 60 weight oil. That's the only thing that's as close as I could come. The 50 weight. I found it at Canadian Tire, and it goes into that little part there. You put a little bit of oil. So I literally plugged it in and it worked. And that's pretty much it.
And there's the label in there.
Yep.
The manufacturing label.
That's it.
Wow, that's just totally awesome. Everyone got to run out and grab one of these things.
So it's a nice addition to the collection, to say the least.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially when they work like that. This also has the 45 kit, because these turntables were built before 45 actually existed. So what happened, it was actually installed after the turntable was built. RCA came up with a way to do it. You have to put it on 78 speed on the turntable. Yeah, okay. You have to put it on 78 speed and then put the knob over to 45. And it takes a second to kick into gear, but there we go. And it sort of sounds good at 45, doesn't
It's
it?
not too bad. Look, I can picture the cartoons coming on.
Doesn't it? And let's try 78 while
Black
we're
and
at
white
it.
cartoons at that, but hey.
Let's try 78 while we're at it. Okay, let's flip it over here, over to 78. Nah, that's a little too much.
Even Elvin couldn't sing that fast.
But you know what, though? This turntable works great.
Yeah.
Ultimately, so I mean, it does work all 3 speeds. And we'll go back to 33 because, well, you know, we can. Flip a few switches, and there it goes. They didn't exactly start on a dime, but that being said, you could probably stand on it and it won't break. So, and there it is. Okay. By the way, that was, I should mention, Wabush Blues, if anyone's worried about copyright. So there we go. That's my favorite turntable. We've put it through a bit of work, filled a few holes on the surface. A little secret when you want to polish this stuff. Black
shoe polish.
Exactly. Tooth polish, no.
Well, you probably could use it, but it wouldn't taste so good.
Well, I tried to find something for this vintage arborite, and I believe it's called arborite, and I couldn't find anywhere else, and I thought, well, let's try a shoe polish.
Yeah, why not?
Or I think that was my wife's suggestion. Either way, it really buffs it up quite nicely, fills in some some scratches in that. So it's a little worn, but it's an antique.
Yeah.
And it works well.
Yeah, and I like that sort of scratchy sound on it too, because it gives it that, back in the day type of sound.
If they're really bad, though, I clean them up in the computer.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I usually leave them in there because it's vintage. And I mean, you think 78s only existed in the 40s? No, this is a vinyl record, literally.
Yeah, it's not one of the old hard acetate.
No, I do have some acetate material that was recorded here in Halifax some 70 odd years ago. But this was one of them pressed records. This came out of New Jersey. But I have some Canadian pressings of the Thesaurus as well.
Wow.
Considering most of this material on the Thesaurus library was never commercially released, it's well worth to keep your hands even on scratchy ones of these, because that's the only way you can get it. A lot of famous people, Frank Sinatra, Hank Snow, recorded under Thesaurus or similar services. And that's the only way you can get this music, this particular recording. So it's well worth actually having these.
Yeah.
In all honesty.
Oh yeah. What challenges have you been faced with creating your own web-based environment studio / station?
Oh, that's an easy one. That's an easy one. It's been a lot of work. Literally, to create what we have here, it's been a lot of work, a lot of luck too, as far as actually getting the gear. Technically speaking, I'm very technically inclined, so the majority I have done it myself.
Yeah.
And that is a great help as far as cost goes. There still always has to be parts to be bought, work to be done to rebuild the turntables, run cable. As far as the actual on-air sound of the station, it's me, totally. Except for one person who I had to do liners for the Maple Leaf Beaver Hour. You'll figure that out. Ultimately, it's me, my voice, my work doing imaging. Last Christmas, I rushed to push through 25 Christmas liners for the station, and that was a bit of a push. Yeah. That was my own push. I'll take credit for that in that sense. I'm legal as far as SOCAN is concerned. I pay a monthly or a yearly fee for SOCAN. So it has been a lot of work. But when you drive down the street with your cell phone connected to your car stereo and knowing that you did that, it's certainly satisfying from my perspective.
It's a sense of accomplishment for you.
It is.
And it's really a hobby that you enjoy, and it's a hobby / almost business, I guess you could say.
Well, it's not business. I make no money on it.
No, but
I put more money in it than actually is made, and my wife knows that only too well.
True.
So in that case, it is a hobby. I want the sound. I want the station to sound as professional as I possibly can on a budget. Being with a background in radio for some 16 years, I'm taking that skill over to this hobby to make it sound good and to have fun. I did get a mention on the London Telegraph as one of the better internet stations you can listen to.
Oh, that's really good.
In December of 2015, and that was an incredible surprise.
Was that London, Ontario, or
no, London, England. The UK Telegraph.
Okay. Awesome. Oh yes. Okay. Telegraph. Yeah.
That was an amazing surprise. I didn't expect that at all. The reviewer called me a little quirky station in Nova Scotia, I think it was, and it was like, yes, because you got to realize that's a 70,000, if not 100,000 station online radio station universe out there.
Yeah.
To get any kind of mention in any kind of media like that,
In
my mind, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I did not solicit for it. All of a sudden, I get these hits on my Facebook page saying, like, oh, about the UK stations, like, the UK article is like, huh?
Yeah.
So I had to get someone to explain where this is coming from.
Yeah, because you kind of lost on it. Yeah, I can see that. But that's...
So it was great. I mean, it's certainly a nice slap in the back for all the work that I've gone through. And this station has been on the air for roughly almost 10 years now. On and off, but I've got logs going back to 2007. I forget exactly when I started.
Wow. Yeah.
So we've been up and running for almost 10 years. And to get any kind of recognition, because I'm not putting out a lot of money. It's a hobby. It's not designed to be a professional business. Because there's no real money in online radio right now, because it's cheaper to spend money on digital impressions and platforms for banner ads and whatnot than to actually have traditional advertising on internet radio. Mm-hmm. And some people are trying to do that, and good luck to them. That's not my goal. The most I will run for advertising is public service announcements to fill time between syndicated shows. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Have you ever had, well, besides that, because I guess that's sort of an encounter, but say a fan or celebrity encounter with your radio station?
No.
Nothing yet?
Not yet.
Okay. What about personally, in regards to radio? Have you encountered any major radio personalities over your years? Well, I have. I know you have, but...
I have my autographed photo of Casey Kasem. That's pretty much it.
Well, that's a big one, right?
I mean, I've worked with some well-known personalities in the Halifax radio metro market for a number of years in the past, but nothing national, if that's what you're thinking.
Okay. Have you ever come up with an idea or implemented something that may be used in this field that to you yourself, you use, I guess, personally, that no one else may use?
Can't really think of anything.
Okay. It's kind of an odd question, but
it is. What's your name, Steve Murphy?
Just a candid question I came up with, thinking, well, we invent things, we do things. I remember one time you modified a phone call-in box. Well, it wasn't a phone call-in box. I believe it was a two-way monitor for your phone.
Yeah, speakerphone. I did years ago.
And I mean, when I first heard that, I thought, hey, that's something unique, So that was something that was implemented, I guess.
Nothing in radio is overly inventive.
No.
Everyone just recycles everyone else. They won't necessarily admit it. The reality is that a lot of this stuff is not very innovative in the traditional sense of innovation.
Yeah. Do you foresee any major changes occurring in this web-based stations?
From what I've read, the medium in the internet world is growing by leaps and bounds. Mm-hmm. It's becoming more and more mainstream all the time. It's to the point where it's fragmenting the commercial radio, the traditional medium for radio as it stands right now. A lot of advertisers are putting more money into the digital platforms online. They're not putting it into internet radio per se, but they are putting money into digital platforms. So I mean, if anything else, it's going to fragment the current traditional radio audiences as we see it.
Yeah.
And right now, literally, if you have a smartphone, you have the proper apps, you can take internet radio anywhere as long as you have a smartphone.
Yeah, so...
And that's pretty darn portable.
Yeah, so it's almost like having satellite radio to a degree.
It's comparable to satellite radio, undeniably.
Yeah.
There's not much difference in that respect.
Only satellite radio you have to subscribe to and pay for quite a bit. So,
the majority, I would say, of most people for internet radio right now are doing like I'm doing. Not necessarily on a scale like I am, but they have like a computer dedicated to it, running out of a fiber or high-speed internet connection.
right.
That's the majority of them, I would say. I can't say absolutely because there's
Yeah.
so many of them.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people out there playing radio, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're doing it right is subjective. So
Right.
radio very much is an art form. You'll have a
Yeah.
lot of people in the industry saying, "Oh, I know radio. Oh, I know this." Well, you know what? You don't. Right now, the medium is in a major transformation. No one knows where it's going.
Right.
They're just keeping status quo and hoping for the best.
Yeah, there's so many changes going on.
There really is.
Yeah.
And realistically, from a professional broadcasting point of view, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
Until there's a major change, until someone comes out there and says, "Oh, I have a new idea. Oh, this is working really well," everyone else is going to copy it. And until that happens, that's all you can do is status quo.
Right.
People are still buying advertising. There's no doubt in my mind of that, on a local basis and on a national basis. It's just that they're spreading less. They're spending less because they're spreading their advertising dollar over digital websites and everything else.
Right. One more question before I go, Scott. What would be your greatest weakness and your greatest strength when it comes to this station?
Is this a job interview?
No.
I mean, really?
Okay, it is.
Job
It is.
interview.
Actually, these were questions from job interviews, but sort of based on this. I just thought maybe, it'd be interesting to find out because it is a profession, although you're using it as a hobby. As a profession based, I could see it that question might be valid. Like,
it's hard to sell as far as weakness goes.
right.
Realistically, something like this I'm doing a format that's totally off the beaten track because I'm doing it because I want to do it.
Okay.
We just as a bit of a background, let me explain this. We take the 20th century, 100 years, as we say at the top of the hour, or as I say at the top of the hour, 100 years, in 7 days. So we break down the entire 10 decades over 7 days. So the first 40 years, from 1900 to 1939, is played on Monday. And that's everything from Edison's scratchy cylinders to Benny Goodman type stuff.
Right.
And then from the 40s on up, we spread it over the entire day. The entire week, pardon me. So it's a decade a day from that point on. There's no way a commercial radio station can survive for something like that.
No.
It's designed, I design it very much like a TV channel. Like the History Channel on TV. Because you have so much to play with. That's the only, you still have to have some kind of format, some kind of sense for the average listener to understand what the hell you're doing.
Right.
So, from that point of view, and the other factor too to keep in mind is that it's a time capsule. It's a sample.
Right.
It's a sample of the decades music, a little bit of actual audio every hour just to give it a feel for what was going on in that era. It's designed to be a capsule, and that's why it's spread over the entire week.
Hence, that's where you got your name from, Time Capsule Audio Network.
Exactly. So it's totally a format that would never make money.
Right.
I understand that.
Okay.
But that's what the internet radio format is for in my mind. It's design. It's a chance to experiment, have fun, and see where it leads. There are a lot of people on internet radio right now, they're just copying commercial FM stations, which is fine. You know, if they want to do that, I'm all for it. But my philosophy has always been, do something a little different.
Yeah.
Because it's a creative outlet for me. It's
yours.
It's mine.
Yeah.
And no one can easily take that away. They can try, but it's still my idea. And I'm just having fun with it.
As they say, often imitated, never duplicated.
Yes.
You'll never be.
And I've always wanted to do that. Radio in general, it went from a hobby for me since I was 5 years old. It went from that to a employment situation as a profession for a number of years. And now it's back as a hobby again, and I can have fun with it because it's very important as a creative outlet for me, as opposed to just a business. It's more than a business for me. And as a creative outlet, this is what I want to do. Not everyone understands what the hell I want to do. That doesn't matter.
No.
It does. I mean, some of the people in the business, like, what? They're doing this weird Dr. Demento type show? It's like, yeah, I don't expect you to understand it because they have the commercial radio mentality. And you've got to think out of that box to understand, be anywhere near understanding what I do. And it's fine. Either way, it's fine. I don't care. You know, I know a lot of people in the commercial radio industry right now, and that's fine. They do what they do. I do what I do.
Yeah. Okay, Scott, thank you for coming on the Canadian Daily with me today and sharing your story.
I don't have any beer. Where's the beer, man?
Yeah, no, I don't even have
I know what I can do. I can do, hey, how's it going, eh? Hey, how's it going?
I love that.
All right, eh?
So, if anybody that's from a beer company that's watching this would like to sponsor me, feel free, because on
I can say Labatt's, eh? Molson, eh?
on my banner.
Just pretend there's actually some beer here, eh? Why not? It's called Your Name Here Beer, eh? There you go. Just imagine there's like beer. This beer can be here for you if you pay Fred some money, eh? Okay.
Don't be a hoser.
I'm sorry. I'm good at being a hoser, eh?
Okay, it's time to get out.
Thanks for visiting.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
So that's pretty much my place. I'm glad everyone stopped by. Hope you found it interesting, and glad to see you again, Fred.
Yeah.
And check out Cheese Please if you have a chance. Cheese Please, CHEEZ or ZE, PLEEZ or ZE.com, or check out the Time Capsule Audio Network. Just Google it. You can find it. And thanks for dropping by. You have a good day.
Thanks, Scott.